7:02. Early breakfast with Africa Melane.
Live, streaming countrywide on Prime Media Plus, DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM.
The president was taking questions from members of parliament in the National Assembly. He participated virtually in that meeting. He faced questions on a variety of topics, including those of migration yesterday, with the lead question coming from the EFF's Julius Malema. I thought we'd take some time to reflect on the 5-point plan that was announced by the president ahead of the June 30th March on March call for anyone who was in South Africa illegally to leave by that date. And joining us via Zoom is a senior research fellow at the New South Institute, Professor Alan Hirsch. Alan, a very good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Africa, and thank you for inviting me, and good morning to the listeners.
It was the first Q&A for the president following the June 30th deadline imposed by March on March and other organizations on all illegal immigrants to leave South Africa. So obviously it was going to be front and center, I imagine, from the members of parliament regarding what is being done to deal with illegal immigration in this country. And more importantly, how do we ensure that we manage the violence that does come with the anti-illegal immigrant sentiment in South Africa. How did you think the president did yesterday in answering those questions?
Africa, I didn't listen to the answer. I've seen a summary of the answer to the question. I think that he has indicated that they spent a significant amount of money on implementing the 5-point plan that he announced early in June, and that clearly that there has been significant progress. If you look at it from his perspective in terms of deportations, a lot of people have voluntarily repatriated themselves. A lot of people have been assisted in repatriation. But a lot of the work in implementing the immigration policy, which was announced actually by the Minister of Home Affairs through a white paper in March, and finalized by Cabinet in March, that has a long way to go. But I understand that he referred to the 400 million rand, which was committed to enforcement, and a fair amount of it is going to continue to be implemented over the next few months. But actually, that's only a small proportion of the total amount of money that is being spent by Home Affairs in developing its systems and implementing its policies to ensure that the people who work in South Africa and live in South Africa are not doing so in an inappropriate way.
He quite rightly faced a question from one of the members of parliament in a follow-up that related to our neighboring countries. What work is being done with our neighboring countries to effectively stem the flow of their nationals into South Africa? In his response, he noted, look, let's be clear, there are some people who are looking for economic prospects who are seeing that opportunity here in South Africa. But in his answer, did not give far too much detail as to what South Africa as a sovereign nation could and should be doing in influencing and impacting our neighboring countries, themselves sovereign nations, in trying to help and deal with this challenge. What instruments are available within the region, and I suppose as far as the African Union is concerned, in helping to fight issues of illegal immigration across the continent?
Well, the vast majority of irregular migrants, people who've either come in irregularly or who've overstayed their visas, come from our neighboring countries who are also members of SADC. So I think SADC is actually the key institution through which cooperation can take place to deal with irregular migration. I know that very, very little has been done. the whole issue of migration was first placed on the SADC agenda in 1995 when there was a free movement protocol proposed. South Africa objected to it because, and several other of the richer countries in Southern Africa objected to it because it was perhaps considered to be too liberal. Then South Africa put forward a migration facilitation protocol in 2005. A number of countries supported it, but it was never completely ratified or implemented. And since then, SADC and the member countries of SADC have done absolutely nothing to implement it. What we can do, well, there are a couple of things we can do. We can cooperate over the laws, and there is a lot of cooperation in the sense that there are mutual agreements on visas with almost all of the other Southern African countries. A couple of Southern African countries don't have systems strong enough, but there are agreements. But what there isn't is really a solution to the problem, which goes back 150 years, and that is that Southern Africans have been migrating to South Africa for work since the 1860s and 1870s when the diamond fields opened up. And the farmers were looking for labor in the northern provinces, the settler farmers. And there are hundreds of thousands of people and thousands of families and villages in Malawi and Mozambique and Lesotho in particular that are very dependent on South Africa for income. So the solution to the problem, the long-term solution, is more development in those countries. And South Africa, because of its the fact that it's profited from labor from those countries for so many years, should be making a significant contribution of perhaps finance, but certainly technical support and other forms of support to those countries to help them to develop their economy so that their people don't need to work to the same extent in South Africa.
Well, collaborating with continental partners was one of the 5 points that the president dealt with when he was addressing the nation ahead of that June 30th deadline set by March on March. The others included cracking down on law violators, securing our borders, stamping out corruption, which I think probably would be one of the more difficult ones to execute, and ultimately to close legal and policy gaps. It's 2 months into it now. How are we doing in achieving anything from those 5 points, do you think, Alan?
Well, some of those points have been acted upon already. So, for example, stamping out corruption within Home Affairs. Every now and then, the Minister of Home Affairs reports on the number of people who've been suspended or prosecuted or fired from the Home Affairs for fraud, which is basically usually providing permits or visas to people that shouldn't be provided. So there has been some progress there, but I think we know that it's quite a deeply corrupt organization and it's a difficult job. But I think they are trying to fix that. On cracking down on visitors, I mean irregular visitors. I think that there's. In a way, I don't think it's an appropriate way, but I think that people who are in South Africa without permission, and even some of our people from neighboring countries who are here with permission, but see themselves as being in a difficult position, have left the country. Thousands, something like 80,000 people at least, have left South Africa in the last couple of months, or from a little before June the 30th and afterwards. And I think that there is an awareness that this is much more of an issue in South Africa today than it was before, and that their lives, unfortunately, may be in danger. And many people have either fled South Africa or fled wherever they were living and found other places to hide because of that. In terms of border security, there is a border management agency which was established a couple of years ago, which is, I think, a much more effective organization than before. But our borders, I think we all know, growing up as South Africans, that our borders are impossible to completely secure. We have a very long northern border with very many remote areas that are almost impossible to secure. So what we really need to make sure is that people understand what's expected of them effectively. There are a few other things, like, as I said, I don't think there's any significant work with other African countries yet on dealing with the issue, and there's a lot that can be done. The issue of closing loopholes in immigration law, well, again, that white paper that I referred to that was passed by Cabinet in March this year and is being implemented by Home Affairs. I believe the legislation is being prepared and may come through early next year. I think in the next session of Parliament, starting early next year. So there's some progress, but a lot of it is very difficult to do, as you suggested.
Absolutely. Alan, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for your insights this morning. Professor Alan Hirsch, a Senior Research Fellow at the New South Institute, reflecting on matters of migration and the challenges that South Africa is facing with them.